Dear students, we shall now discuss the chapter on foundry, which is included in the syllabus of Manufacturing Process 1 under Group C. Foundry deals with the process of casting of ferrous and non-ferrous items. In this process, a pattern is made first, which is a replica of the object to be cast. Some allowances like shrinkage allowance, machining allowance, etc. is added to the dimensions of the object to be cast to arrive at the dimension of the pattern. The pattern is made in two halves, and the impression of the pattern is taken in sand in two mold boxes. When these mold boxes are put one over the other, the shape of the object is generated as a casting inside the mold boxes fitted with sand. Now when molten metal is poured through a gate in the cavity, it takes the shape of the object and it can be retrieved as solid after cooling. A modern foundry consists of the following major zones or divisions. Melting zone, it contains cupola, mixing pot, molten metal carriers. Then molding zone, sand mixing zone, core making zone, core oven, knockout zone, sand recovery zone, casting cleaning area, pattern making zone, storage of patterns, and laboratory. Patterns. Patterns are replica or model of the object to be cast. Except for various allowances, cores and core trims, a pattern exactly resembles the object. Difference between a pattern and an object. Pattern carries various allowances like shrinkage allowance, machining allowance, draft allowance, etc. Patterns are of different material than the casting, for example, wood, aluminium. Patterns carry additional portions like core prints, etc. Pattern may be in 2-3 pieces, but casting is one. Patterns can also be made out of plastic, wax, and plaster of Paris. Wood as a pattern material. Wood has been the most popular pattern material, and more than 90% of the casting is done with the help of wooden pattern. This is due to the reason that the advantages of wood as a pattern material are many. It is readily available and cheap. It can be easily shaped and machined. As it is light, handling is easy. It can be joined easily by gluing, nailing, and intricate shapes can be made easily. Good surface finish is obtained. It can be preserved for a long time by applying protective coating. Now, what are the disadvantages of wood as a pattern material? The biggest disadvantage is it absorbs moisture easily and shape gets deformed. It wears out due to abrasion with molding sand. It needs preservation for storing. It needs dry place for storing. Not suitable for use in large number of casting impressions. Life is short compared to the number of casting impressions. Now the types of wood used in pattern making are teak, shisham, kail, deodar, sal, walnut, mahogany, and pine. Metal pattern. Now wood has been used in most of the casting, but there is a requirement of metal pattern also in certain cases. The metal patterns are made of aluminium, cast iron, steel, brass, or white metal. Now what are the advantages of a metal pattern? It does not deform in storage like wood, which deforms in storage by absorbing moisture. Its dimension does not change in moist condition and in contact with sand. If the wooden pattern is used to make more impressions in sand, then the wooden pattern loses dimension. It gives good surface finish. It is suitable for accurate dimensioning. It has good durability and strength. Now, disadvantage of a metal patterns are it requires a lot of machining to achieve the finish and shape, which is very easy in case of a wooden pattern. As metals are costlier than wood, these are unsuitable for less number of casting. Some metal gets rusted and may contaminate the casting, resulting in defective casting. Metal patterns are heavier than wood. Selection of pattern material depends on the following factors: number of casting to be produced, method of molding, hand or machine, method of casting, for example, for investment casting, wax pattern is used, dimensional accuracy of the component, design and shape of the component. Pattern allowances. The most important pattern allowance is the shrinkage allowance. Metals contract volumetrically during cooling from pouring temperature to room temperature in different phases. That is shrinkage in molten stage, in solidification and in solid stage. The shrinkage allowances in different materials are mentioned. For example, for grey cast iron, the shrinkage is 7 to 10 millimeter per meter. Steel, it is 20 to 21 millimeter per meter. Aluminium, 16.5 to 18 millimeter per meter. Brass is about 16 millimeter per meter. Bronze is 12 to 20 millimeter per meter. That means in 1 meter length, this will be the shrinkage in case of the different materials mentioned. Pattern maker scale. Now, in special scale is available with the marking done with shrinkage allowance incorporated in the marked dimensions. On both sides of the scales are marked with 4 metals, 2 each on both sides. This is the problem in case of arriving at the dimension of the pattern. Grey cast iron items are to be produced from aluminium patterns. If one dimension of aluminium pattern is 80 millimeter, calculate the correct dimension on the wooden pattern from which the aluminium pattern is to be made. Now, if you make aluminium pattern or a metal pattern, to make that, one has to make a wooden pattern. So if you make a wooden pattern first, then aluminium pattern and then the material, then the shrinkage for aluminium and shrinkage for the grey iron casting are to be added to the dimension of the object. So in this case, the aluminium pattern will have an allowance of 1.36 millimeter, because 17 millimeter is the shrinkage in case of aluminium per 1000 millimeter. Similarly, allowances for grey iron casting is 10 millimeter per meter, so it is 10 by 1000 into 80 is 0.8 millimeter. So total dimension of the wooden pattern corresponding to 80 millimeter would be 80 plus 1.36 plus 0.8 is 82.2 millimeter. Two other allowances on pattern. Machining allowance is a normally kept 3 millimeter overall, but depends on complicacy of the casting. Draft or taper allowance. All vertical surfaces on patterns are provided with this allowance for easy withdrawal of the pattern from sand. Shake or wrap allowance. After molding, the pattern is shaken by striking with wooden piece from side to side for removal. It enlarges the cavity, so negative pattern allowances are provided. Mold wall movement allowance. When molten metal is poured in the mold, cavity movement of the mold walls take place due to excessive heat and static pressure exerted on the surface. Distortion allowance. Distortion or warpage of casting takes place due to uneven shrinkage in the different parts of the casting, poor design of the casting, and unequal thickness in various places of the casting. Types of patterns. Patterns are of different types. Single piece pattern, which is very rare. Two piece or cope and drag pattern, that is the maximum used in foundry. Multiple piece pattern, sometimes patterns have to be made in multiple pieces. Match plate pattern, great